Hey, so I've spent 10 years eating a plant-based diet now, and the last 5 years helping over 550 men and women lose weight on a plant-based diet without all the extremes. And in this video, I wanted to break down the 10 biggest home truths, let's say, lessons, tips, insights that I've learned in that time. So if you're stuck on the scale right now, or perhaps you're losing weight but just want to ensure that you keep it going and get to your ideal healthy body weight range so you can feel your best, buckle up. I think this one's going to be really useful. Let's dive in. Before I forget, meal of the day. If you're new, this is what we do. If you're following me on Instagram, you already know what this is. If you're not, it's Ryan Adams UK over on Instagram. This is one of my protein sludge bowls that I've been doing an awful lot lately. So I take a plant protein powder here. I've gone for a chocolate one in this case. I simply stir that, mix that with a little bit of water or soy milk. I don't use as much liquid as I would in a typical protein shake because I'm going for that sort of thicker, sludge, desserty sort of mousse consistency, let's say. Not quite mousse, but yeah, no, moussey consistency. And then depending on whether I have this as a snack or a small meal, that will sort of determine the amount of toppings and the type of toppings, actually, rather, I should say, that I throw on. In this case, this is going to be a small meal for me. So we've got an apple here. It's pretty self-evident, isn't it? We've got some strawberries, a couple of blues, and then, of course, some hemp seeds. And yes, I think whole foods seem to be best for absorption, nutrient absorption, as far as we know, but occasionally I will use a relatively cleanish, quote unquote, plant protein powder for a little bit of extra protein in my diet. Okay, let's get into this. Home truth number one, this is first on our list because it's very topical right now, and I keep coming back to this big insight time and time again in the last 18 months. You can inject Ozempic, but you can't inject new habits. I don't think real transformation comes in a shot. I think deep and genuine lasting behavior and habit change comes from learning your behavior patterns, building strategies to cope and deal with those things, and pushing through your past historic quitting points, taking the cravings on the chin and pushing through with your healthy eating practices regardless, going through the moments of self-sabotage and doubt and limiting beliefs. And I just think Ozempic, or by extension any other GLP-1 drug, and lots of other weight loss drugs actually, I think they mask in various ways, they artificially mask the difficulty, or they smooth over, let's say, the difficulty of some of these crossroads moments, some of these quitting points. And I think as grandiose as this is going to sound, over the top as this is going to sound, I think actually these are transformative moments. Where it's 10 p.m. at night and you'd usually have Ben and Jerry's and you've had a bit of a crappy day, you've had an argument with your boss at work, you're super stressed, things aren't going your way, and you just want to crank out the Ben and Jerry's, right, and watch some Prison Break, as so often happened for me back in the day. I think those are the moments where you push through those moments. That's where your behavior, your relationship with food actually changes, because you're forcing a new behavioral pattern. And I just think Ozempic or other GLP-1 drugs anyway, by officially masking appetite, do they allow you to breeze through some of those moments? I fear so. So even if it's working right now and you're losing weight with it, with something like Ozempic, what happens when you come off? Number two, vegan isn't automatically healthy. This one is so obvious that I almost feel patronizing saying this, but I think a lot of people are rationalizing poor food choices under the guise of, well, at least it's vegan, right? And so I want to put emphasis here on, and we get lost in definitions, vegan, plant-based, etc., etc. But this is why I put so much emphasis on always saying whole plant foods, all right? And so I think as a rule of thumb, understanding that just because something is vegan, that doesn't automatically make it healthy, it doesn't necessarily give it the green check. As a rule, we want to ditch largely, the fake meats, the cheeses, the vegan desserts and sweet treats and whatnot. And as I say, stick mostly to high fiber, high nutrient content, generally speaking, lower caloric density, whole plant foods. That's where we're going to have the most success with weight loss. Like I say, people know this intuitively, right? I'm just saying, hey, you need to eat more whole foods. Wow, it's profound. But I think some people often get lost in the, well, it's vegan, right? So it's okay. Lesson number three, calories, not culprits. What do I mean by this? Calories, not culprits. Well, forget blaming carbs or fat or fruit, for example. I think like the keto folks, they're always making the claim that it's carbs. Carbs are very fattening. Then perhaps at the other end of the spectrum, you've got some of the high carb vegans who I largely agree with, or the raw vegans perhaps, that are saying, no, fat is the issue in terms of obesity, right? The fat you eat, didn't you hear? The fat you eat is the fat you wear. They're both wrong. They both sound equally nuts in my mind, honestly. Even if I largely agree with other philosophies these folks have, I think this is totally nuts. I think it's incredibly clear to me from both the literature and now anecdotally as a weight loss coach, again with what I think, not to sound braggadocious, with a decent base, right? 500 clients. All right, I think I've got a handle on this now. This weight loss is simply a calorie issue. And I think there's a lot of weird blame game goes on where people aren't quite diagnosing the problem accurately, and they're sort of demonizing a macronutrient or a food group when really weight loss simply comes down to, am I in a consistent calorie deficit? Yes or no? That's going to dictate my success. I could give my Slim and Sustain clients 3,500 calories a day into their meal plan, and it doesn't matter if it's high fat or low fat. It doesn't matter if it's whole foods or a bunch of junk. Not that I do that, of course, but they ain't going to lose weight. 3,500 calories, even clean eating. Oh, I'm doing the low fat thing. Why aren't I losing weight? You're simply eating too many calories. Insight number 4, fruit isn't candy. Fruit isn't sweeties, I should say, for my fellow Brits. It's not confectionery. I think it's a good job we've got our little display here, isn't it? Because I eat 4 to 5 servings of fruit per day, and I credit it as being one of the food groups that most easily allows me to be in the aforementioned calorie deficit here. Because fruit, fresh fruit, I should say, dried fruit being the exception to this rule, has a very, very low caloric density compared to many other food groups. Not to mention its high fiber content, high water content, and the other nutrients, antioxidants and whatnot that fruit contains. I just think from both a health and a weight loss perspective, it's fantastic. And I don't think the sugar in fruit is bad. And people are still terrified of it. Even though it's a whole food, people are still absolutely terrified of fruit. And I think actually it's a crazy weight loss hack. It's great for those cravings. As I say, low caloric density, and that's why I eat so much of it. And so do my clients, and they're seeing amazing results. And as I say, I think the sweet tooth is a really big part of this. When you can channel those crazy sweet cravings towards a little bit of fruit every day, wow, it makes a massive difference. I have a lot of clients write to me in sort of week 1, week 2 saying, feels really good to be able to eat this amount of fruit. And I've noticed I don't want as much XYZ. Insert sweet junk food of choice, sweet treat of choice. Insight number 5, this is one that gets me really riled up when I hear misconceptions about this online. Menopause is a factor, but not a fate. I think this one really riles me up because of how, 1, disingenuous, but then 2, also disempowering it is to many women that point blank, I have my female clients tell me this all the time, point blank get told by their doc, give up with this weight loss thing, you're in menopause now, game over. This is nuts to me, right? I even feel the cortisol release. I've hardly even started on this subject and we're not turning it into a rant on this. I won't lie to you, right? Let's be balanced. Hormonal changes matter, but they don't break the laws of thermodynamics. They don't break, again, this all-important calorie rule, to reference it again. And I've helped now, and I think this is why it bothers me so much, I've helped more than 50 women lose weight whilst in menopause, right? During menopause on my program, many after, I would say at least another 30, 40 after. It's actually probably more, it's probably another 50 after that, thinking about the age brackets that I help people with. And this is no barrier, right? There's arguments that it makes it more tricky and more difficult, but even if we can argue about, the slowing of metabolic rate or increased cravings during menopause, even if we can make those arguments, to put so much stock into that, I think, if you're a woman in menopause, I think it's a huge, huge mistake. It's so disempowering. Number 6, you don't need a salad for breakfast. If you've been in the plant-based space a little while, you might know to whom I'm referring, the educators that are pushing a pound of raw veggies at 8 a.m. I strongly disagree with this. I don't think this is necessary. I think to say that weight loss hinges on this one thing, again, beyond just your overall being in a calorie deficit every day, I think is quite a disingenuous claim. I think that's a sneaky claim. And as a matter of sort of personal preference, I like, my big in most cases, cooked breakfasts. So I like to have my banana and berry oatmeal. I like to have my healthy cereal bowls, the muesli, the bran flakes that you'll see me do here on this channel, over on my Instagram and whatnot. A lot of my clients have avocado toast, would you believe, for breakfast, or they have the oat pancakes, smoothies and whatnot. You don't need to eat a pound of raw veggies to start the day. Weight loss doesn't hinge on that. I think that's a great practice, nutritionally wonderful, but does weight loss hinge on that? No. Is there any benefit necessarily to having raw veggies at that point in your day before you eat anything else versus at other points in the day? I'm not sure about that. It just doesn't need to be done, right? And I think the way we ought to be framing weight loss is you need to get yourself in a calorie deficit. It's your choice how you best go about doing that. But pick the method you enjoy, obviously. If you don't want to eat a salad for breakfast, please don't think you have to do that, because some people really believe this stuff. Tip number 7 is a semi-controversial one, but actually my clients are eating this food in many cases on a daily basis. It's a staple in their nutrition plans, whilst they still lose a realistic and sustainable 4 to 8 pounds per month until they get to their ideal healthy body weight. Here it is then. What am I talking about? Bread is a cheat code, not a cheat meal. I don't think bread is the enemy. Wow, shock. And I think purity culture, to a degree, in whole foods plant-based circles, certainly online, does go too far at times. I think there's nothing wrong with a good whole wheat, rye, sourdough bread with minimal ingredients. I think this can absolutely fit into a healthy and a weight loss friendly diet. And most importantly, and I think this is why the recipes, the meals with bread inside Slim and Sustain are so popular with my clients, is because of the convenience practicality aspect, right? We can do our hummus and avocado sandwiches, we can do our smashed chickpea wraps, we can do our no tuna chickpea salad sandwiches. That's one of the more popular. Out of all the recipes I have on Slim and Sustain, some of the sandwiches are the most popular options, and they're like 2 minutes to prepare. It's almost hilarious. I put so much thought into other recipes and making those good, and people are just like, hey Ryan, I love the sandwiches. It's hilarious. But the simplicity aspect, I think is really fine. It's really beneficial anyway, in terms of making your diet very sort of, realistic, practical, etc. Lesson number 8, 5 meals over 500 recipes. You don't need to be a plant-based chef. You don't need to do all this fancy elaborate stuff. You just need 5 or 6 go-to meals that, number 1, give you all the nutrients you need, of course, and number 2, that you actually enjoy. So you actually find your diet realistic, sustainable. You can actually adhere to it over the long term because you're enjoying it. Simplicity wins. Consistency wins even harder, and I think the two are connected. I think the more simple your diet, the greater your chances are of consistency. At some point, of course, you will need, this is the caveat, you will need a little bit more variety, and you don't want your diet, of course, to be so boring that you go and start ordering takeout pizza or whatever because you're a bit sick of your stale meals. So you need to be able to mix things up at the right time, but generally speaking, I think you just need 5, 6 meals rather than hundreds, thousands of recipes. And this is incredibly overwhelming. People go online, they start looking at all the vegan plant-based stuff, and they get very overwhelmed. Like, what am I gonna make here? There's a new vegan cookbook out in the UK. I'm talking about it like I still live there, but in the UK, every single couple of weeks, every single month, it seems, it's incredibly overwhelming. Stick to the basics. Number 9 is a home truth that I keep coming back to year after year after year as a coach, but I also see the benefits of this in my personal life from a fat loss leaning down perspective. I have a philosophy, as you likely know, of slow go activity over high intensity activity. I think intense exercise is wonderful and it has many benefits, but it can also, when you're in a weight loss phase, spike your appetite and sabotage, in many cases, your ability to control your portions very sensibly. And I actually think, right, contrary to the eat less, move more narrative, like more exercise is better, which is a reasonable way of thinking, of course, and for many people, that is an appropriate way of thinking. But I actually think slow go movements, gentle, steady state movements, like a bit of walking, yoga, maybe some gentle pedaling, like I often like to do after my weight sessions on a recumbent bike at the gym, or just some gentle sort of movement on the elliptical trainer. I think, or even like low intensity home workouts like I have my clients do in month 2 of my program. I actually think in many cases these are often a smarter, more sustainable bet for weight loss. in my opinion. So again, another semi-controversial take there, because when people want to lose body fat, right, they're like, oh, I need to burn calories. I need to do the most intense thing that makes me sweat my brains out. And I just think the appetite control goes out the window for a lot of us. So if you struggle with that, you might find it beneficial to shift lots of your exercise towards more slow go movements. And lastly, number 10, most certainly not least. In fact, if this list was in order of importance, this might make number 1 spot. This is a fundamental philosophy that is baked through my whole Slim and Sustain practice, all of my coaching program. This is personally something that has been really useful to me in my weight loss phases over the years. And even now, as I've sort of broadcasted very publicly to the internet, now I'm in this little fat loss phase where I'm trying to get to 10 or 11% body fat, get really, really lean and see if I can make it sustainable. This has been something that's been so helpful to me in the past month or two whilst I've been doing that. Here it is then. Spit it out, Ryan, the suspense. Smaller deficit, better results. Smaller deficit, better results. Of course, I'm talking about calories here, right? Crash dieting on very, very low calories. Yes, it gets you fast weight loss in the short term, but it virtually always backfires. And I find a much smaller calorie deficit to be considerably more sustainable, less chances of binge rebound. It's also more enjoyable, so you start associating sort of more positive feelings with the process of slimming down versus it being this really hard diet. Oh, I'm dieting again, and it just evoking all of these horrible negative feelings. Slow and steady does actually work. The problem is it's unsexy. It's not going to get you ripped ahead of your vacation in 8 weeks' time because it's not going to produce results that quickly. It's a far more moderate, as I say, unsexy, less compelling approach. But I think it is the one that actually works and it actually leads to lasting change. So yeah, that is why I run all of my clients on a very small calorie deficit. That's why whenever I'm in a fat loss phase, like right now, I'm just personally doing a deficit of maybe no more than 300 to maximum 400 calories per day. And sometimes I'm okay with being in a deficit of 200 calories because that still will be a little bit of body fat. Chalk it up at the end of the week overall. And I'm happy with that because what is the cost of running for me a 600 or 700 calorie deficit, which I can do because I'm a very dedicated, ambitious individual with regards to, my physical fitness. So I can do that, but I can't do it for much more than 2 weeks because the crash and burn is coming. So smaller deficit, better results. So that's your fill. These are 10 core ideas and philosophies that I keep coming back to time and time again after 10 years eating this way myself, and of course the last 5 coaching over 500 men and women through this process. I think I am starting to learn battle-proven. I am starting to work out the battle-proven sort of time-tested, let's say, template for weight loss. And it started with some research, but admittedly a lot of self-experimentation. And I've kind of whittled on myself, I should say. I've kind of whittled it down to, this whole Slim and Sustain method. And I started then making YouTube videos about this some years ago, and one thing led to another. And yeah, I built a program on, the sort of method that I was following and that was changing my life. And it so happens that, if I find something realistic and sustainable, there are lots of other people out there that will also find it really realistic and sustainable. And so, of course, my Slim and Sustain program was born. So yeah, hopefully you got some useful insights out of me sharing, the biggest lessons and principles, philosophies that I've realized from all that experience now. And if you do need a little bit of extra help, or a lot of extra rather, help and support to get out of that frustrating yo-yo weight loss, weight gain, rebound, loss cycle, etc., etc. You want to ditch all those extreme diets and find a method that you will truly find sustainable, find a way to eat plant-based that you actually feel, yeah, I could eat this for the rest of my life, regardless of if I want to lose weight or not. This feels absolutely amazing. And you want help, building a plan that truly feels like it fits your lifestyle and is going to be practical for you. Well, Slim and Sustain might just be the right fit. So I'll put the link in the description box down below. Alternatively, just type in veganslimandsustain.com to learn more, get all the details there. Okay, chat soon.